Welcome to another episode of the Business of Aesthetics podcast. I'm Michael Walker, your host for this episode. And before we get started, I want to thank all of our incredible listeners from the United States, Canada, and around the globe. Your continuous support means everything to us. A special thank you also goes out to our sponsor for this episode, Equa Marketing. With nearly 20 years of experience, Equa Marketing is a leader in digital marketing services for aesthetic practices. They are offering our listeners, that's you, a complimentary digital marketing consultation, which will include a tailor-made 12-month digital strategy for your practice. This is something that they really believe in. How, just look at this podcast, is how can they support the industry? How can they support you? By offering things like this. So you can head over to Business of Aesthetics, that's all one word, businessofesthetics.org/MSM/, and you can go ahead and book your consultation. I can tell you it's free, it's super powerful, and if you're a digital wizard already, then this might not be valuable. If this is an area that's not your specialty and it pulls you away from your specialty, then you want to take advantage of this offer. But let's go ahead and let's jump into today's topic, Beyond Burnout, Breaking Free from Toxic Workplaces and Outdated Career Myths with Kelcy Heringer. Welcome, Kelcy. It is awesome to have you here today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I am having Kelcy here is something that we've met before, and Kelcy brings a bold and refreshing voice into the medical aesthetics world. She brings a no-nonsense approach to career development, leadership, and workplace culture, calling out the outdated norms that too many professionals still feel pressured to follow. In this episode, we'll explore why overworking yourself doesn't lead to promotions, how toxic work cultures disguise themselves as high-performing teams, and what it really takes to own your worth and advocate for your growth. Kelcy's experience as both a clinician and leader gives her a unique perspective on how to navigate and challenge the system from inside. Kelcy also has taken on new initiatives as a leadership coach and has taken on a very interesting perspective with that, and I'm sure we'll get into some of that today as well. Kelcy, thrilled to have you here, and let's kick things off with a powerful this powerful topic that you have raised. Being the busiest person at work can actually backfire. I love that statement. We know that's probably true, but can you break that down for us and explain why this belief does more harm than good?
Yeah, definitely. It's really interesting. And I have been guilty of this myself, being coined as the get shit done person. But I'd say in working with my clients over the last year, it's the theme that I see to be the most common, which is high performers are wondering, why am I not getting promoted? Why am I underpaid? Why am I feeling undervalued? And I'm the one that's crushing in results, doing all the things, raising my hand all the time. And really, like, the hidden downsides of being that person is, let's just like think about it from the other people's perspective who are perceiving them that way. People love to have people under them who they can rely on and who make their lives easier. And so when you become the fixer and the saver and the doer, it can stunt where you're at because people like to keep you there. You're making their lives easier and you're the easy go-to that's always like up to do it. So you become their crutch and they don't want to lose you. So, and then the second thing, if you think about it from, I always like to say from like a math perspective, let's just say it's somebody in a practice and they're doing the job of multiple people. They're relied on for being that person that gets the stuff done. And so you've become too valuable to promote because then they would suddenly need to go hire a couple people or 3 people to do your job. And that's expensive and really rare. So oftentimes when I say being the get shit done person backfires, it's because you corner yourself into that brand versus the strategic leader.
I love the way I love that saying, "Get shit done," and and the idea. It's an interesting concept when you think about it. That if if you're always, as you say, if you're the go-to person, then people will go to you. But I have in my coaching world, I try and take, my philosophy is to take 80% of a person
Mhm.
and focus it on 20% of what they're great at. And most people don't know what that 20% is. That's what you do as a leadership coach. That's what your clients come to you for, is to figure out stuff, to get shit done, figure that out. It's just we don't. It's an interesting, but and most organizations, when somebody's the go-to person, they tend to be very, they tend to get focused on being the transactional person, or what they do and how they do it, and within the context of the organization. But one of the greatest values that get missed in that is the relational side of who they are and why they matter. And so they just, yeah, well, just get Bob. He'll do it. Remember,
Sure.
there was a cereal, life cereal. Give it to Mikey. He'll eat anything, right? Like
Yeah,
it's that
exactly.
idea that okay,
Great.
well, he can eat it. So, but that's not what people want today. Is they want to know they're valued and heard. They want to know that they are part of something. And if you're so busy doing shit, you're who's going to hear you? Who do they know to follow?
Completely. And I think oftentimes, I don't know about the clients that you work with, but the clients who I am working with or in consulting projects, what I see the most with people is they're typically wanting to not be the get shit done person, and they're typically wanting to be viewed as a high level leader. And I think that it's really hard when you step back, though, and be pretty objective about it. It's not as hard when you think authorities set direction, and you have to be looked at as an authority to earn the positioning as a leader, and executors follow direction. And so I think that always is like a helpful objective way to look at it, which is executors get the stuff done, and authorities hold power and control and hopefully influence to get to what they're doing. And then the executors take the handoff. And when you say that to them, they're like, oh, that's not what I want to be. I want to be that person. And so you have to go through. And before the call, it was so interesting to hear the framework you take your clients through. You have to take them through what brand do you want to be known for, and help them see that vision, and then work through, well, what transformations do we need to make in order to get you there? But this is often a very clear one, which is you got to stop raising your hand. You got to set boundaries, and you got to start working smarter, not harder, which is like so easy to say, but
Yes, very easy to say. I was thinking of acronyms as we're talking. GSD, right? Get shit done.
yeah, get shit
So
done.
what we have to do is move from a GSD mindset to what I'm going to call is an AGQ.
Yes.
And an
Thank
AGQ is
you.
asking great questions,
Love
starting
it.
with yourself. That's the thing. Unconditional curiosity without opinion, expectation, and judgment. We've lost the art of doing that. And in a lot of medical practices, because everything is theory, structure, and science, we already have the answers. So here's what you need to do: is the treatments, these are options. Here you go. So we overlook that relational piece, and we do that both with our patients as well as with our staff. And that's where the breakdown usually happens. Wouldn't you agree, Kelsey? It's in that space, and it's the communication. It's the part most of us go home at night thinking, well, geez, that didn't turn out so good. And we don't have I know from you as a leadership coach, that's the whole idea, is how can I help you? How can I help you do that in a way that you can own? I love to say, own your true north, own you,
Yes.
own your identity. And there's a lot of these nice sayings and stuff, but at the end of the day, do you? Or is everything else driving the pet? We see a lot of this when we get into uh, insurance-based businesses, where the insurance companies really drive their destiny, and they've lost sight of the passion, what they're doing, all these different dimensions. So um, I think
I
so.
agree.
Go
And
ahead.
I,
Yeah.
yeah, I think there's a couple things that you said there, which is like driving themselves and their vision. But then there's another part to it, which is like when you say they're asking questions, I look at it as like leaders. If we think about the leaders we respect the most, they're usually not the busiest ones, right? Like they're the people who are the clearest and who are always seeking clarity and then very simply stating it. And so I think the leaders often that we're helping people get to and that people aspire to be, they have to be incredibly strategic with their time and energy. And so I think that there is something big around like the definition of success between a get shit done person and a valued leader is productivity versus valuing themselves and thinking every day of who's the leader I want to be and then setting their operating schedule around that. So I think the high five is not on how much they can do, but how well they can do the right things to get to the place where they want to be. So that
Yeah.
really was a light bulb for me when you said question asking, because you're excellent at it. But it's also something that I think really great leaders do well is they seek clarity versus being busy.
Yeah, that exactly. And you sum that up beautifully. I mean, if you think when you're a child at 5, 6 years old, if you're, I don't know if you're a mom or not, but if you
I
have,
am.
if
I
you,
have an 11-year-old.
oh, well, there you go. So, so a child 5, 6 years old will ask 300 questions a day on average. You remember that?
Oh, I think I'm at 150. Mom, mom,
Yeah.
mom.
Yeah. But what's interesting, by the time they're 12 years old, they're down to 14 questions. Our
Yes.
culture actually strips out curiosity. It actually, it puts us into slots and boxes and structure, and there's the odd one that gets away. And I think and the idea of unconditional curiosity is this idea of being curious without opinion, expectation, and judgment, but starting with yourself. If you haven't looked at yourself, if you don't have enough self-awareness, then how could you possibly have other awareness? And how can you possibly have a curious conversation? And it's just so, and it's just a hard, and in these in aesthetics practices, and whenever there's a high degree of science, engineering, the theory tends to drive the ship, which I want my neurosurgeon to be the best neurosurgeon, the top in his class, actually. I don't need him to be a friend.
Yes.
I want that expertise. But with that, you still need to have we were this doing life is not a Lone Ranger sport. So we need this, and it's a challenge. And I think it's, and I know you know that from your background. And I have a question here that I'm going to throw out to you. It says you used to believe that promotions come from simply working hard and waiting for annual reviews. That was philosophy. What really changed your philosophy? What was the turning point for you with that?
Yeah, I think to be honest, like somebody told me you're doing this wrong. You're thinking about it all wrong. And so I'm super grateful for that person because I used to not be in the driver's seat of my career at all. And I oftentimes find, and I'd be curious to hear too with like your clients, I oftentimes hear like, I can't ask for a raise or promotion. Like I'm just supposed to like wait until it's annual review time, or I have to wait because we're waiting for a raise. So I think for me, what really shifted is that you have to run your career development like a program, and programs do not get built by saying something once or doing something twice. It is something that has to be constantly managed, and you need to have a communication strategy around it. You need to have feedback built in around it. And so for me, that has like been one of the biggest shifts, but also like hard learnings in my career. But one of those things that we talked about before we hit play on this, that you get to help people unlock something that somebody taught you. And then you are just so happy that you learned it, that then you want to pass it on to people. This is one of those for me that I love helping people simplify and having a very simple playbook for how to drive their careers.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And it's life's complicated enough. Let's
Mhm.
not make it add to the complexity just because that's the way it's been done. I mean, I know that's you. You love to be a disruptor. So the idea here, if you think about the context to me is of celebrating the wins. We don't, and we if we and I shared with you, as I said before, a question, the three questions I ask my coaching clients is new clients is first question, what are they passionate about? Most people can't really answer that question well. Second question is what what values are non-negotiable that are going to underpin that? And then what do you want your story to be in 10 years? And what you want your story to be, we basically are going to reverse engineer that while we introduce wins along the way. And so you are the author of your wins, not somebody else's. And like in our work, in my work cultures and where I coach, we don't, there's no, you'll never hear anyone talking about annual reviews or performance reviews. What you'll hear is success conversations. And there's no schedule for them. And it's like a huddle. Anybody can call one. Now, if you call one every Thursday, that could become problematic. But generally, and then we talk about what the wins look like. So we're creating, because it's not just about what they do and how they do it, it's who they are and why they matter and how they add value to the overall vision and values and that we've established as the brand, if you will, the essence, the fragrance of why we matter. It's just
Yeah.
it's a different philosophy, but you can't, the reality of that is you have to establish a culture that looks like that. But and there's not a lot of cultures like that. I have to admit that's an area that's lacking, I think, in some regards. Not as aesthetics. I see a lot of it though in the aesthetics field. But you can just you can take the reins on that and run yourself. Hey, you're from Montana. You can take the reins of that horse and run. You get to drive. You get the.
And you can drive. It used to be no speed limit. Now there is 85, but because we do have cars,
Yeah.
people always think.
Does
No
that make
car.
sense though, Kelcy?
Yeah, absolutely.
You get to be the driver of your destiny, your choices. So many, and you don't have to wait for the bus to pick you up. You can just why don't you go ahead and craft your own bus route.
Totally. And I think there's a few things that come to mind when you say that. I think number one, going back to like the get shit done person, I think so often I see in people like, hey, if I put my head down and work hard, I'll get promoted. So that I think is like an insight that backfires on people, that you have to be always thinking about and driving like your own career and not just doing stuff that is going to move the business forward. And a powerful question that I got asked one time was, why do you care about the business more than yourself? And I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm getting asked that. But I ask it to my clients when I see it too, which is they're over indexing on doing all the things and putting their head down and trying to hit results. But often that's not what's required. That is definitely not what is all that's required. There's this whole other, what you said, sharing your impact and playing chess to like an extent, but in an honest way about driving your career. And then I think oftentimes mistake number two is people wait for their time. And this is where it's the driver's seat. It's like, don't wait for HR, don't wait for your boss. You have to do it. And so I always tell my clients, if you are not having a check-in with your boss every 8 to 10 weeks with a very simple framework, and it can be something as simple as what's motivating, what's not motivating, and what is it that I need to work on over the next 6 to 8 weeks in order to like whatever success you have like said that success is. And then also, if you do this every 8 weeks, then the previous 6 to 8 weeks, do a look back and say, scale of 1 to 10, how did I do on the things that we laid out to work on? So that you're always driving the conversation and back to like driving this programmatically. Then there's never any awkward discussions around, hey, when am I going to get a promotion? Or what's next for me? Or when can I develop this skill? People oftentimes feel like it's awkward and that there's not really a place to bring it up. So build the place. You put the invite on the calendar and take the reins. And that's like an actionable way to do it. And I have a third one, which is outsized impact. So I also think it's something that is majorly overworked, underlooked, but something that I think is a fast tracked way to speed up a promotion or a development discussion. And so I can go into that in a minute, but it's basically, how do I sign myself up for something extra that isn't going to take a ton of my time, but helps move the business forward, that's going to fast track where I need to go, whether it's financially, getting investment for a coach, or getting the next title promotion. So those would be like the three things that I see to be the most common things for why people feel awkward advocating for themselves or why they're not advocating for themselves.
I love it. I love it, Kelsey. And I think you just said something, investment for a coach. That's interesting. It's an interesting, I've been coaching for quite a while, and I have clients who've been with me for a long time. The only reason that, they're because at some point coaching changes from kind of, it's like a journey of life, right? It's like Lion King, but it's the idea though is what happens now is if you ask my clients who've been with me quite a long time, if you ask them what the greatest value I would bring to them as a coach, they would say, well, it's that you create a space for an agenda for an agenda free space that we can explore what needs to be explored in a way that I could never do it on my own, or not nearly as efficiently or quickly, or get cut to the chase, if you will. And so I think these things, as we're talking about that, looking as you're describing different steps and doing all these things, often what I hear is professionals say, well, I'm just too busy. I don't know where to start. And they get paralyzed by volume, and it doesn't get going. And so it's what's the next right step? What's one thing, one soundbite you've heard here? They say, okay, well, what if I did that? How would I start that? So I think and again, am I selling coaching? Probably. But I'm really not selling coaching. I'm selling what I like. It's like the idea is brand is not executable. It's a relationship, but we try and make it something that we have to do and thing. And you are the brand in your business, your practice, whatever that looks like. And it's really hard unless you have somebody alongside with you to help. And you don't have who has an agenda-free space? If you don't have a coach at home, your marriage, that's a unique space, but it's not agenda-free. And so I think it's really important. And you said something about, using the word success. The one thing I see a lot is that we assume that we all define a word like that the same. And we don't. Like if you and I define success, Kelsey, and I would guess just from our conversations that we probably are more likely to look at success through not just through a financial or how many likes or how many followers. We would look at success more through the lens of prosperity, which is wholeness or wellness to one. We'd look at success as being financial, relational, spiritual, physical, emotional. It would be very holistic. And I would guess most of our listeners would be as well. But we never ask that question. We don't. So when we start to set up wins, we're just assuming we know. And but you can't ask the question unless you've already asked it for yourself and know what
Absolutely.
and I know you're really good at that. And in a workplace, people are trying to keep everything nice and not say what they need to say. Like, in fact, I'm going to talk about boundaries a little bit here, but you've shared that people should stop sugarcoating things.
Oh,
Again,
yeah.
I like that use of that term, and stop taking unnecessary criticism from others. So I love it, but how can professionals start setting healthy boundaries at work? And keep in mind, Kelsey, what's that starting point for them? Like, okay, if I'm with you on this, but how do I start?
Yeah, this one is a challenging one. I would say for me, if I looked at my entire career though, and I'd love to actually hear what's yours. But I will answer the question. This one for me changed the career trajectory for me the most out of any skill that I had to change in myself, which is like learning to be direct. And I think because I wanted to be a respected executive, and I knew that people respect people who respect themselves. And when you give somebody clear and honest feedback, especially when it's hard, you're signaling to them that you're confident in your own opinion and your own voice, and two, that you really care about the relationship or the outcome because you're saying what needs to be said. And I think the shift that is not talked about the most is that the minute that you give somebody like really, really, really direct feedback and get yourself out of the like tiptoeing phase, they stop seeing you as beneath them. And there's this interesting like shift in the playing field, and they start seeing you as a peer or maybe even somebody that is an authority that they look up to. So I think going back to like when people want to, stop being seen as the doer or the helper and start seen as a leader, they need to build trust, and trust is what builds authority. So leadership isn't about being liked by everybody or being the nice one. It's about being respected by the right people too. And respect is, as you know, like built in micro moments of building people's trust over time. And telling the truth where it really counts. It really, really matters, but it's a hard one. So I'll say
Yeah.
that like in terms of the why it's really important, and happy to get into the any like tips for it, but would love your reaction.
Yeah, well, respect. Do you know, Gallup just came out like last month, I think it was, with an updated survey of employee engagement, and it number one has the biggest thing in the last one, last year, was people they would leave organizations when they don't feel valued and heard, and we know that, and that's not unusual, and anyone in the business can feel that, but the problem is we just don't know what to do with those two words, because they're not transactional, they're relational, and we're not usually focused very well relationally in our organization. So having said that, though, this new one came out with a more narrow perspective. You hit the nail on the head: respect. People don't, if they don't feel respected, that's deeper. That's at a higher pay grade than just valued and heard. And so people are getting more and more, I think it's really more attuned to how they're going to spend their time, and they're not going to put up with stuff as much as they maybe used to. So I think that's where that word's coming from. It's
Totally.
interesting. I try and look at what's coming at me. As a professional mediator, I deal with lots of messy stuff. I used to be the poster boy for the fear of conflict. But when I discovered the power of curiosity and forgiveness. That's pretty much it. That what's coming at me is that person's best expressed cry for help. So what do I need? How can I help? Not how can I push back? How can I run away? How can I avoid it? And I've discovered that when something's going on or something's happening, I try and find my part in the problem. So that I would come to you, hey Kelsey, um, can we just have a conversation about a couple of things today? And yeah, sure. What? It's just, well, I wanted to start. I think I'd like to ask you for forgiveness. You say, for what? Well, you know, I think that we set you up for success in some areas, but not so much in this particular area. And this, and this. Does that make any sense to you? You go,
Yeah.
well, yeah, it does. I hadn't really thought of it that way. I've just been trying to, and it's like we just have to be, and to your point, where people just feel they can, what's going to come out of that? What's the power? It's trust. And trust builds courageous conversations. It builds outside the box ideas and thinking and innovative thinking. It makes you the top 10 employers in the world. It does all that stuff. So, but it's that idea. And I think those are words that we don't usually use. We don't use passion or forgiveness in the workplace. We say we're sorry because we got caught, but forgiveness in this context of respect. And that's the challenge is that there's no textbook on this.
No, no. And
But
right when
but
you,
there's leaders. There's leaders that want to we become the textbook, because the only way that this works is by leading by example.
yes, and right when you said that, there's another word with like respect. And I'll try to be the yin to your yang. I'll be the cynical one here and like think about a little bit like the positive side is earning trust and respect. But when you were just talking, I'm like, the cost of not doing that is like you lose credibility. And I think so often I find people like trying to, even the sorry message that you gave, you just came out and said it. But I see so often people are like wrapping it in disclaimers and softening it to be vague. And then you're not going to be taken seriously. So I think it's also as people look at like, what's my motivation to be direct? One, you hope that people have empathy and really want to care. But if you are trying to become a respected leader and that is the brand that you're going for, wishy-washy equals uncertainty. And over time, that kind of creates career drag and people second guess your instincts. and they're going to pass you over for high stakes conversations because
Mm.
you're not really confident and don't speak with conviction around what you're talking about. So I think, again, we talked about how clarity builds confidence. And I think this is full circle coming back to that again, which is credibility is incredibly important to be respected and trusted. And if you're over fluffing the feedback and you aren't being direct, it's at risk.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love the way you're pulling that into a place where, okay, so what could I, what can I do differently? But I think to finish the sentence, what can I do differently, starting with myself? That's really comes down to, like, one of the things that we talk about, when I learned the difference, when I really learned the difference between validation and agreement, it was a game changer.
Yes,
You know, I can validate I can validate the fact that you want to go rob a bank, but I don't have to agree with you to go and do it with you.
totally.
And
Yes,
and validation creates space for you to be able to identify with something. I can validate, hey, just appreciate you being part of the team, Kelcy, and doing this, and this. I can identify you got a lot on your plate and everything. But here's the C. We call it VICHF. Here's the C, the issue. We got this going on, and then the H is. But at the end of the day, I'm just glad you're part of the team. I'm putting honor into the mix, and I'm going to follow up with you in a couple of weeks to see how things are going. And I think there's a bit of what happens is, and I don't want to I'm a parent, as you are. I don't want to give parents a bad rap, but we kind of bring being mom and dad into the workplace. And we
mhm,
just say, tell John, well, just stop doing that. We're going to get this, and you can't do that anymore. Don't do that. And now who owns the problem? We do, and I think
totally.
that's the challenge, is trying to let it go and just validate, hey, listen, I'm, I joke, I say, so I hear so you're going to rob a bank, Kelsey. That's really interesting. Well, thanks for sharing. That's a little crazy talk. I mean, it's kind of high risk. So I'm just curious, so why are you so passionate about potentially going to jail and robbing a bank, unless you know something I don't know? He says, well, I'm not. I don't want to do it, but I'm so far in debt and so overwhelmed, I don't know what else to do. Well, I would never get that information if I just said you can't do it. Disagreed. And that's where these conversations have to start. But we have to be confident enough in ourselves to have those conversations in a way that allow space for that to foster. That's really all I do in mediation, is I create a space to hold something that didn't exist a minute before. And that's what we do.
And I think you have to, by creating space for them, but you also model it for them. So
Yeah.
I think, like, when people say, well, where should I start on being able to like learn how to give hard feedback? I think practice is a big part of it. So starting with
Mhm.
like low risk conversations or situations and building their confidence over time. But it's just like we talked about with like managing your promotions and career development like a program. You kind of have to manage feedback like a program that it's always on. And cultures, I love to help people build, and cultures I love to be a part of are ones where transparency is the all day, every day. And you get that through curiosity, like you said, but it's also through saying hard things. Not always just getting to like lead through questioning or leading through compliments or um, uh, like leading through question asking. It sometimes is like, you got to say the hard thing. And so I think the second tip is like, prepare for those discussions and find somebody that can help you prepare for those discussions. Like, write down the 3 bullets of what you need to say, which should answer like why you're bringing it to them, what the example is that you could give to them, and what you feel like needs to change because of the impact that it's having, and then have somebody look at it, so that over time you build again more confidence in your ability to just do this on demand. But it's unnatural for many folks to be super direct.
Yeah, exactly. You've hit the nail on the head. I mean, if you think about for professionals, we do all this testing, marketing, ABC testing. We do all this in science and all these things. But we don't do any testing on conversations, which is kind of
Exactly.
crazy because we're really not good at it. But it's the idea of I would have my clients, so I'd have them script out what they're going to say. And depending on the person, we haven't even talked about personality types, but a certain group, they just, this is like nails on a chalkboard to them. So I have them scripted out and we work through and we talk through and we ultimately work it through. And then I say, can I just have your notes? And I take their notes and I rip them up in front of them. They freak right out the first time, then they know that they won't give them to me the next time. But the whole idea is that I said, well, you got it now. Well, I don't. Yeah, you do. You're smart enough. Trust me. You're not 12 years old. I know you got this. But I wanted you just to, it's like I go out at the beginning of winter and skid my car intentionally in a parking lot with other cars so that I can feel the skid so that when I'm on the road driving, if I feel the skid, I don't react to it. I'm just thinking about the strategy I need to stay on the road. And I think so this is a test day. It's just like an A/B test. So, but this is the hard part. And a lot of businesses, who are you going to do that with? You can do it with your team. That's where you get in. Everyone hates the language, role playing and stuff, but you can make it fun. It's not going to be fun for some people forever, but it's just scripting it and just being and running just like you would in any other business practice.
Totally. And this is where you can use Chat GPT too, right? Like
Yeah,
you
it's
can,
huge.
if you're like, I don't know who to ask, like throw it in and say, give me 3 scenarios for how you'd handle this. Like, here's what I'm thinking. And it's amazing what you'll get back. Like,
Oh,
maybe you wouldn't do it that way, but here are 3 alternatives. She can be
so
surprised.
even if you were like today, I would say to a client, say, script it out, all right, and then say, let's just throw it into Chat GPT and see
Yeah,
what do you think? And it comes back, oh, I like that. I said, all right, but is that you or is that? Oh yeah,
exactly.
and then it's just, but it's interesting by putting it into AI, it brings a credible partner to the conversation that makes it easier for them to say yes to do it.
Totally. And I think the point, whether it's you, me, ChatGPT, a mixture, different mentor, the point is like ask somebody who you respect, who delivers great feedback and who you admire how they deliver feedback and have them look at it.
Yeah,
So I think it's amazing that your clients get that from you, that they play drafter. And I bet over time your editing gets way and way less. And it's fun to see when you see somebody go from, oh my gosh, why would you ever say that? And how are you going to lead with that? And that's what I'm thinking as a coach, but never say that, and say it much more kindly. But then to watch them after getting those at bats under
yeah,
their belts, and you're so impressed by like the presence and confidence that they get and are okay with delivering the hard feedback, and it starts to become natural for them. And then you watch them build cultures of transparency and trust with their departments and teams. It's really cool.
yeah. That's the gift. I mean, that's
It
why we do
is
what we do. And
totally.
it's interesting what happens with my clients is we start with in a business setting with scripting. Sometimes where it ends up going is into the family where there's underlying tension or issues, and they start to be able to apply that to their family. Or sometimes we start there because um, that's an area that they don't feel safe enough in their workplace. So we'll start at home with something really simple, and we'll just do some personality preferences to just look at differences and start to unpack just little pieces, But it's the idea of just being another favorite word of mine, being intentional. I mean, I'm not just sort of planning to do this sometime in the future. I'm going to do something different when I get off this podcast and move forward with it. So I got a question where I want to get into, we are watching our time, but toxic work cultures. This is an issue and this is real. This is a big deal. Breaking free from toxic work cultures. So how do you recognize when a workplace has become toxic and what are the first steps to getting out?
Ooh, yeah, great question. I think there's like probably what 50 you and I could easily come up with for um, what the signals are that you're in a toxic work culture. But maybe what I'll do is just like talk through some of the ones that I see most common in the spaces that I am working in. I'd love to hear yours, but I'd say oftentimes it's manager or colleagues or leadership are backstabbing and gossiping. That is a common one. So there is drama and gossip. Um, Number two, people feeling, if you are feeling unheard or constantly shut down when you bring up feedback or your ideas. And then I'd say a third one is like you feel super stressed, anxious, emotionally, you dread, like yeah, the
Mm.
Sunday scaries are like every day. And you should feel the opposite. If you're in a healthy work environment, you should feel, of course, sometimes we don't always like love going to work, but you should feel psychological safety. And so when those three things, I'd say like those are some of the three most common. What do you see?
Yeah, well, I think that you've hit the biggies on there. I One of the biggest thing that I tend to see is that a culture that where there's a toxic workplace will have be being driven by unhealthy conflict. And unhealthy conflict is where people are passionately disagreeing with each other and taking it personally. Um, where in a healthy culture, what you'll see is healthy conflict, people are passionately disagreeing, and
Yes,
because they can trust each other, because they have a your word transparency and openness, they don't take it personally. That's the
complete.
game changer. But in
It is.
unhealthy conflict and third party conversations around the coffee machine or wherever, the photocopier, that's gossip. And just to be clear, gossip is bullying.
Mm-hmm.
So if it's okay to have if it's okay for people to be bullied, then let it go. If it isn't, then cut it out. And but it has to be crafted into your vision in terms of a value that will you point to so you don't take it personally. We just don't do that because this one of our core values is integrity. So whatever that looks like. So that's really for me. And when we start to unpack unhealthy conflict, it's totally fixable. That's what I do for a living. What's more fun is when you get to empower healthy conflict and you build exactly what you're talking about and how you have approached the workplace and giving people space to be the best version of themselves, but at the same time to actually be curious and invest in each other in a way that why would they ever want to leave? And and it's money is a factor, but it doesn't drive the bus. So we got to watch our time, and I gotta kind of hit with one last question for you, Kelsey.
Okay.
So let's just talk. Kind of this is good because everybody, if somebody's in an environment now, I'm in one of those places and I feel undervalued, perhaps, or I don't, or I feel overworked, or my confidence is just kind of being eroded, or I just don't know which way to turn or where to go. What would you like to leave them with as a thought for how to look at the situation they're in and make it and be intentional with a change?
Yeah, I think it's a really good question because you're also wondering like, we kind of listed what are the signals, but I think it's important to ask yourself like, is it time to stay or go? And part of the question there is this an actual toxic work environment? And I think if you aren't feeling respected, if you see value misalignment between your values and your integrity and the company's, and if you don't trust or respect leadership, and you see good people who you do feel like share your values, leaving, those are signs like, okay, check, check, check. I'm in a toxic work environment. And so I think like making sure you understand it. And I would say like find a new home because your job is not to fix a toxic culture. And so I wish, as I look back, I wish I would have never accepted and made excuses for toxic behavior and gotten out sooner. So find a place. And this goes back to, let's talk about you and advocate for you and figure out where you want to go and what peace is for you and fulfillment is for you. I can't imagine it's in a toxic work environment. So I would say I would do two things then once you've decided, hey, it's time to go. You start setting boundaries if you know you need to stay at the workplace for a certain amount of time and you take your power back as much as you can until you can find something new. If you have the ability to quit sooner than later, great. But don't try to make it better. While you're still there, don't try to make it better. And then do an exercise with me and you on how to figure out what's next and find like the right home. So, which I think is another hour that we need for me and you to talk
Yes.
about that.
We'd have no problem filling up several hours,
We
Kelcy.
would not.
As we said, we knew coming out of starting this that we knew that we had kindred souls on this. So,
Yes.
uh, but with time, thank you so much, Kelcy, for joining us today and sharing your raw and refreshing and insights on beyond burnout, breaking free from toxic workplaces and outdated career myths. We certainly have touched on all those. And I think we brought to the table some interesting ways to look at it differently. Move that, like I would like to say, if you've got a plate of fruit sitting on a table and you have lights on it, you see it a certain way. And if you move those lights, you'll see that differently. And that's really what a coach does, helps you move the lights. And sometimes that's all you need to do is to get unstuck from being in a situation. But as Kelcy says, sometimes it's just time to go. And that's okay. You give yourself permission to do that. So to our amazing listeners, thank you once again for spending your time with us. We so appreciate each and every one of you. And certainly we couldn't do this without your support. If today's episode has resonated with you, please share it with a friend or colleague in the aesthetics community. Let's keep spreading awareness and inspiring change. And if you enjoyed this conversation, please don't forget to leave us a review or a like on your favorite podcast platform. We love reviews and likes, and so should you. Your feedback helps other professionals find us and grow with us. And guess what? It sets each of us and all of us up for success. So before we do wrap up, though, a special thank you to Equa Marketing. As I mentioned earlier, is our sponsor for this episode. And as I mentioned earlier, Equa is offering a free digital marketing consultation to our listeners, which includes a personalized 12-month strategy tailored to your practice. Again, this is just a great tool to get somebody to have a look at your digital footprint in a way that they basically move the lights on that fruit and allow you to see it in a different way and bring value added to that. And it's completely free. This is just something that the Equa Marketing wants to support you with. And you can go ahead over to Business of Aesthetics, all one word, businessofesthetics.org/MSM/, and you can go ahead and schedule yours today. I really encourage you to do it. Unless you're an expert in this, it's super valuable from what I've seen already. So until next time, and I think there'll be a next time, Kelcy. Until next time, keep challenging the norms, protecting your peace, and building the career and culture you truly deserve. Wishing all of you, on behalf of Kelcy and myself, an amazing, insightful, and empowerful week ahead.